Hello, welcome back to the channel. I know, it's Christmas Eve. Brian, what are you doing recording? Well, as you know, last night we had Lilina debut as our newest legendary hero, which means I got to fill in the last spot on my hero tracker chart for the year, for 2020. A year that many of us would like to forget, but as I'm about to go through the year in units, as it is, 2020 wasn't really that bad for FEH. In fact, it was pretty darn good. I will be working on a list of my favorite things to have happened in FEH, be it news or summoning or whatever. That's coming soon. That takes a little more effort than filling out a chart that I track all year round and just pop up some graphs. So that will be coming soon. In between the hero tracker for legendaries and mythics and the Lilina summon and the New Year's reaction and a hero rises speculation, there's so many videos coming in such a small amount of time. I hate both summer and winter just for these reasons alone, because it's a lot. But if you don't want to miss any of that, be sure to subscribe so that you can come back and get notified when those go live. So let's go ahead and take a look. Oh, before I forget, today is the final day that you can enter in the Hall of Fame giveaway. So if you haven't done so yet, I'm sure most of you probably have. I haven't seen the entry number tick up too many times in the last week or so. So I think most of you have already entered, but there are people still kind of filtering it. So today is the last day. I will be shutting it off Christmas Eve. You got to go to bed because Santa's got to do his thing, all right? And that's when I shut the form off. You understand? And then I pick winners, and then you get notified. So yeah. So anyway, enter that if you haven't done that already. So year in units. Let's take a look at 2020. And conveniently, I started doing this last year, so I actually have 2019 to compare. So for the first sections, I'm going to give like a 2019 to 2020 comparison, and then I'll have a couple broken down stats by unit types and movements and things like that just for 2020. So that'll be part 2. But it shouldn't be that long. I didn't dive too deeply. I will be streaming later today, and maybe tomorrow. Actually, we might do a little double Christmas streaming. So, if you want to know anything specific, you can leave it in the comment or maybe catch it on stream. Because I do obviously have the chart. I just, I don't know what you guys want to know, so I just go with like a top level approach, and then we see what we can find. So. Heroes by month debut, and you might not think that this is all that interesting, but I wanted to see overall if we had more units debut in general this year than we did last, i.e. are there more heroes in the game this year debuting in banners or whatever than there were last year. And you can see it's pretty similar. We've got some dips in August, a little bit higher in July, September dips, October dips, November, a little bit of a dip, December, slightly higher. January was a little bit higher, February was a little bit higher, March, again, April, May, June. June was actually a little bit lower. Overall, it's about the same. which is not very exciting, which is why I started with the slide, because I wanted to get the boring one out of the way first. So Heroes by Origin. This one's always interesting because it shows who's going to be the most popular, right? Who is going to be the one that gets all the glory? Why are there still no genealogy banners? Blah, blah, blah. All that stuff, right? This is basically what that boils down to. So we've got new mystery of the... because Emblem got cut off. We actually had a lot more, like triple the amount actually. There's 5% this year compared to 1.4 last year. Three Houses also had a pretty big boom. In fact, Three Houses was basically the star of this year with 17.3% compared to the 9.1% last year. Awakening this year. Where are you at? Are you been on here? You are here on here. 4.3%. Awakening. Last year, 4.9, so about the same. Even though I don't know that we had... Did we have a true Awakening dedicated banner? I don't even remember. I know we had like some sprinkled bits in that were awakening this within banners. But I don't know that we actually had like a full-on dedicated one. Blazing Blade last year was at 7.7%. Blazing Blade this year, where are you? 5%. Ooh, that's a bummer. Poor Ellawood. Poor Lynn. Poor Lynn. Lynn got an alt though, so that's cool. Who wouldn't have expected that, right? Thracia, 776. 6.3% last year. This year, however, we are looking at... Are you even on here? I don't even see it on here. Did we not get anybody? I guess we didn't get anybody. I guess they were all genealogy. Disappointing. Mystery of the Emblem, 4.9%. 5% last year, so basically the same. Sacred Stones, Binding Blade, 6.3 and 9.8. Sacred Stones this year, 6.5. So again, no real change. Binding Blade, 7.9. So Roy got a little less love this year, but overall it's relatively the same. I think the two big shockers so far, well, maybe not even a shocker. Three Houses, obviously, going up double. Really no Thracia love. Shadows of Valentia was 11.2 last year. Shadows of Valentia this year, 4.3. Oh no. Fates was 9.8. Fates this year was 7.2. Not a big difference. And I saved Tellius for last because, of course, I did. Path of Radiance is 7.7 last year. This year, it's looking at 5.8. However, Radiant Dawn last year was 9.1 and 7.9 this year. So we did get a lot of Tellius, but honestly, the big bulk of stuff came from Three Houses. And then Heroes. Heroes is interesting too. It felt, right? It felt like we had a lot more OCs popping up in the game. Like we even had a double mythic at one point. Last year, 11.2% of the heroes debuting were from the FEH region, whereas this year it was 10.1. Bizarre. And there is obviously a fluctuation between total units debut in each year, so that's going to throw the percentages off. But it's interesting that only 10% of the total units debuting this year were actually FEH OCs, and it was about the same as last year, even though it felt like there were a lot more. Isn't that weird? I think that's weird. All right, let's move on to something a little less complicated. Rarity debut. So this is something that is obviously of great interest to many a player. It's what the units debut as when they first appear. So if it's a GHB, it's going to debut at a 3-star rarity because that's the lowest possible rarity it gets when it debuts. If it's Tempest Trials, it's a 4-star. If it's a 4-star, 5-star on a new Heroes banner, whatever, that's going to be a 4-star as well. It's always, I default it to the lowest possible rarity, just to keep things fair. So, take a look. 2019, 79% of all debuting heroes were 5-star, and then 9.1% were 4-star. 3 stars were making up 11.9%. Which was rough, right? Because obviously 3 stars require more feathers, 5 stars require more orbs, and 4 stars are kind of that sweet spot where you can get more of them more easily, but also they don't annihilate your feather stash. It was the lowest possible ranking in 2019. This year, however, big old jump. 3-star rarity debuting clocked in at just under 8%. 5 stars dropped to 66.9. Nice. And that is a far cry different from last year because it's like literally a 10% difference. And that pretty much all went into the 4-star, where a quarter of all heroes debuting were at a 4-star rarity availability, which is really, really nice. And I think we all know what the reason for that is. We all have the 4-star seasonal and new hero banners to thank for that. So thank you. That's definitely making my top 2020 moments, that announcement information. But Yeah, I think this is a much more agreeable graph on the left, right? This graph here is just it feels better. It feels like I'm not trying to get taken for my money as much. You know what I mean? Like 5 stars obviously make up a bulk of the game, but there's a lot of great 4 stars that are available now as well. So very, very nice to see that happening. Status. This would be its. I don't really know what to call it, so I called it status. So normal, grails, which are like free to play, basically reward things like that. Anything that ends up in the grail pool. Special units, which are seasonals, or just random ninjas and pirates. And then legendaries, mythics, which legendaries and mythics I feel like are probably kind of similar, but not. And I differentiated them just because of how Ether Raids treats them now. I figured that would make more sense. So overall, I think the colors match 1-to-1. Yeah, they do. Okay, cool. Overall, it's about the same. Like legendaries are like a 0.1% difference. Mythics went up a little bit, but I feel like that's probably due to that double mythic of Freya and Triandra that we got last month. And then normies, about the same, a little bit less. The Grail pool is about the same, and then specials took up a little bit more bulk, but again, that's likely due to the fact that we had random specials where in the past we'd had things like hot springs and picnics, and that is it. That is the only type of special unit that cannot get a seasonal banner. But we had specials like, pirates and ninjas and bizarre stuff. I'll be interested to see what comes around in 2021, now that they're kind of doing those every other month as well. So that was kind of not very exciting, but a little bit of fluctuation. But again, we pretty much knew why they were fluctuating. Heroes by version. So this is a base and an alt. So if we have base Corrin in the game and we get legendary Corrin, that is an alt. If we get who do we have? Sylvain. If we get Summer Sylvain, which is an alt, but we don't have him in game, he's obviously just an alt and not a base. Does that make sense? So that's kind of where that tally comes from. Basically, if they're on a new Heroes banner, it's a base. If it's a seasonal, it's an alt. And even if they don't have a base in the game, I did not treat them, their alt, like Sylvain, as a base. Make sense? All right, cool. So, Heroes by version. Last year was pretty much split. As you can see, last year was pretty much split. It was literally 0.3 difference, which was making the slight angle towards the alt. However, this year, they went a little alt crazy. 54% of all units debuting were an alt of some kind, whether they had a base unit in the game or not. And I feel like this is because they introduced more alt banners, basically. And they're also doing a better job of trying to get more units into the game that aren't currently in the game. And I think that's a good sticking point to make. They're paying very close attention to Choose Your Legends. Please vote responsibly. And, like I said, it's not a coincidence that we had 3 very popular units in the Christmas banner this year when they were all within the top 10 of male and female rankings of Choose Your Legends earlier in the year. So they do pay attention to that. Not all of them had bases. They did put a fair amount of alts in there without having their base unit in the game, which is good. I mean, if they're in the game at all, then that's good, right? Because base units always have a chance to get in the game because new hero banners aren't really going away. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a lot of Fire Emblem characters. So they have plenty of time to get all of that straightened out. But the alts are something a little bit different, obviously, because they don't repeat the same games year after year after year. They do kind of this cascading flow thing where they split the banners and they borrow some newer units from previous used title into the new one, and they introduce new units. That's basically what they do for the most part anyway, with seasonal banners. And so I like to see that this is happening, but I also understand that Alts aren't necessarily the most exciting, especially if they get kind of a lame one. I'm not calling Valentine's lame, but I don't particularly find any of the outfits all that interesting. And they're usually armors as well. So, you know, if I get Valentine's Cordelia and she's just like this armored lance unit, I'm going to be like, oh, you know, it's a bummer, but, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, I'm rambling, and I just really want New Year Cordelia. Okay, so heroes by gender. Now, don't get tricked, okay? I don't know why my graphs did this, but they flipped the colors. So on the right side, we've got heroes by gender of 2019. The males are represented by the red, and the females are blue, and it's the opposite on 2020. I don't know why it did that. My graph hates me, I guess, but it is what it is. So women made up 57.3 of the total heroes released in 2019. 2020, they make up 55%. So is it still waifu emblem? Kinda. But it's getting better. You know, we're getting there. We're working on it. That's what I was saying. We're working on it. Just give us some time. You know, hey, everybody likes the ladies. Okay, all right, just give us some time. We're slowly moving the edge. So that's encouraging to see, I guess. This basically means we're getting more different units in. That's what this graph is representative of, which is very, very nice. So yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Hey, what about this? What about heroes by weapon? That's exciting, right? Heroes by weapon. So we've got, oh dear, a lot of things happening here. So tomes are still making up a fair amount between the 2 years. We had slightly more tomes this year than we did last year, but I have a feeling that has to do with more legendary heroes because we got a lot of tome heroes. Not to mention the introduction of colorless tomes, so that kind of increased the availability of tome users that we could get, as well as alts, like Micaiah, for example. Bride Micaiah, colorless tome, who'd have thought? Swords, you know, this number's always going to be pretty high. Not really a big difference between the two, just a 1% variant. Daggers dropped. We did not get as many daggers this year, and that makes me sad. Beast units, big drop in beast units. Holy cow. So if you remember 2019, that was like a beastiful year for a lot of people. There were basically a lot of Awakening and Fates and Tellius beast units released last year. That's why they took up a 10th of everything overall. This year they kind of dropped back on a little bit. It only gave 4.3. Bows, what's to say about bows? They're always here. About the same, relatively speaking. Lances, we have a couple more lance units this year, which is, I guess, exciting if you like lances. Axe units at 13, almost 14% this year compared to 7% last year. So a lot more axe units, which is nice. I feel like green units are some of the more lesser played weapon types. You have less of an option choice when it comes to axes in the game. Are you going Echidna or just Echidna? Okay, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Although I guess Legion's a good option too. His Refine was really good. Staffs about the same, and dragons also about the same. So really, the biggest variance happened with axe units and beast units. I feel like they kind of like cut back on beasts and like gave that all to axe units. Basically what they did. They just replaced half of the beast units this year with axes. Heroes by movement. So last year was nice. There was nice variability, as you can see. It's cavalry and flyers themselves made up half of the game, and then we had 15 roughly percents worth of armor, and then the rest were all infantry. This year, however, we had, well, you can see it. Infantry made up half of the pool. There's a lot of infantry options, dude. Flyers came in second with 25%, so staying about the same. Well, exactly the same, actually. And then cavalry units took a bit of a dip, mainly because of infantry. And then armor. Armor went down by almost half, dudes. Which I don't think we had like a full armor emblem special banner, like not even Christmas or what was it, Halloween. So that's a thing. This was definitely the year of infantry units, man. There's no getting past that whatsoever. So, for those of you who are like, man, there's so many infantry units, and what is with this infantry BST? Yeah, exactly. it's weird to until you actually like see it in person. But yeah, this is legitimately the breakdown this year, which is very, very different from last year. I think this is probably the most drastic change that we've seen, and just the movement from armors and just so many freaking infantry units. This is why flyers are still my favorites in the game. They're constant. They stay reliable. And here we're going to move into more of the 2020 fun stuff. So I broke down alts a little bit since we did have a few more alts this year. So alts by weapon this year, the majority were tome, believe it or not, followed up by swords and lances, and then I think bows, and then I think, or no, axes, sorry. Axes, swords, and lances all made up about 13%, and then bows, and then dragons, and then everybody else. Beasts coming in at 6.7%, given how few we had this year. Pretty exciting stuff. And then alt by movement type. So movements type, again, this probably shouldn't come as a shock to you, given how vastly skewed the 2020 debut was. But infantry is making up 42%, flyers 29%, cavalry's at 16%, and then armors at 12%. So pretty reflective, I think, of the overall like release based on movement. But pretty similar in terms of just the alt sliver of that section. And I know you're curious, so let's look at our free-to-play statistics, shall we? So these are grails. So these are anything that are reward units, anything in the grail shop. Well, not reward units, unless they're in the grail shop. I should specify that. So Null, for example, is not on here. Or Emerin or anybody like that who got released but not really released, kind of, you know what I mean. Anybody that's in the grail shop. So your free-to-play options primarily that you can plus 10 pretty easily. So grails by weapon, lance and axe. Big winners here. Big ol' winners. I know it felt like we were getting Lance Tempest Trials units constantly, and we were. that's not false. But Axe is coming in here too. That was a big pull. And I think overall the weapon type debut this year, Axe is pulled and skewed from the Grail pool for sure. By movements, oh my goodness, infantries. Again, not too terribly surprising. We did get more armor grails than we did cavalry grail units, so that's kind of interesting because that doesn't really reflect the release debut of 2020 necessarily. But flyers again holding in around 29%. So, like I said, flyers are always very constant. You always pretty much get the same thing with them, and then not a huge surprise that we have the infantry kind of dominating everything as it has, as it continues to. Armor by weapon. Armors. What did you get this year? You got some staffs, which is, I guess, kind of interesting. Just the one. I think it's Sephirin. Axes, big winners. Lances, big winners. Not terribly surprising. Didn't get any armored swords this year, I guess, which is kind of curious, but it is what it is. Cavalry by weapon. So these are all cavalry units that we have here. A lot of tomes. Tomes are the big winners. Tomes and axes, I think, this year were the big changes, I guess, in weapon availability. We had a lot more axes and a lot more tomes. Cavalry's made up the majority of tomes, I guess, is what I'm getting by this. But we'll take a look here at our flyers and infantries. So again, infantries, big winners, tomes, swords, not anything that you would be terribly surprised by. And then flyers, lances. Did you know that lance flyers are a thing in FEH? I didn't. But we did get some tomes, which is kind of exciting. And then some axes, daggers, flying dragons. Why not? all good things. So just some interesting kind of breakdowns between the movement type and what type of weapon that they held. Let's see. And then one last category that we had was heroes by color. And for whatever reason, I didn't do this last year. I don't know why I didn't, but so this is 2020 onward now that we're going to be taking an exciting look at. Heroes by color. This is the breakdown. Relatively pretty well distributed. Colorless came in higher, I think, than normal. Not because we got more staffs, not because we got more daggers, but because of tomes. Primarily, that's pretty much where all the colorless bulk came from this year. Greens again, tomes, bows, axes. Axes had a big spike this year. Blues are pretty much lances for the most part. And then reds, obviously swords, continue to dominate the pool in terms of red. But you know, that's a thing. That's exciting. So yeah, I don't know why I didn't do that last year, but so this is a fun 2020 onward tradition that we're gonna do. By the way, look at this graph. What does this graph tell you? It tells you should subscribe. I hope this wasn't too long-winded. Again, I just think it's fun to go over these. So, happy Winterfest Eve or whatever holiday you're celebrating. We'll be back tomorrow with, I think, the hero tracker, because I'm pretty sure Lilina comes out tomorrow. And after that, I don't even know. When does Lilina come out? I don't know. But we'll be back with a hero tracker whenever that happens, so you can find out when your next legendary and mythic heroes are returning when. And then we'll do a summon, and then we've got a bunch of other stuff planned a very short amount of time. Thank goodness I took next week off from work. Hooray! All right. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what was the most surprising thing that you saw this year. I don't know. Share your thoughts. But that is it. I didn't focus too much on BST this year because I don't want to focus on BST because it just keeps going up and it's not exciting. But anyway, that's it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe. Come on back for more. And until then, I will catch you next time.